In this lesson, we're looking at different types of elements. The elements in the periodic table of elements, which we shall explore in our future lesson, can be classified into three main categories. We have metals, nonmetals, and metalloids. If you look at the periodic table, it is laid out in a way that shows two major sections, with a tiny ladder-like groupings between the two major sections. Let's start with the major section of the periodic table of elements, which are the metals. Most elements are metals. Examples of metals include iron, tin, sodium, and plutonium. Metals exhibit the following properties. Metals are lustrous. Luster is a property of metal that describes the amount of light that reflects off the metal. This means they are shiny. They can reflect light, which makes them shine. Think of a shiny gold or silver jewelry of your mom or dad. Metals are also ductile. Ductility is a measure of a metal's ability to withstand tensile stress, any force that pulls the two ends of an object away from each other. They can be drawn into long wire without breaking. We use copper wire as electricity line because of this property. Metals are also malleable. Malleability is a property of metals that defines their ability to be hammered, pressed, or rolled into thin sheets without breaking. This means they can be hammered into flat sheets without shattering. For centuries, we have been able to shape metal objects by heating it and pounding it with a hammer. Think of medieval swords and shield. Most metals have high melting points, except for mercury. They are mostly solid at room temperature. Metals are also excellent conductors of electricity and heat. Because they are also ductile, they are ideal for electrical wiring. We also use them as our cooking equipment, like metal pot or fry pan. Some metals undergo a chemical change by themselves or with other elements. These metals are never found in pure form and are difficult to separate from the minerals they are found in. Sodium and potassium are the most reactive metals. They react violently with air and water. Potassium will ignite on contact with water. Iron also reacts with the oxygen in the atmosphere, forming rust. However, other metals don't react at all with other metals. This means they can be found in a pure form. Examples are gold and platinum. Because copper is relatively inexpensive and has low reactivity, it's useful for making pipes and wiring. Nonmetals are those elements which do not exhibit the metallic characteristics. Some examples of nonmetals include oxygen, chlorine, and argon. Nonmetals exist in all three states of matter. The majority are gases such as nitrogen and oxygen. A few are solids such as carbon and sulfur. Nonmetals exhibit very different properties from metals. For instance, in the solid state, nonmetals are brittle, meaning that they will shatter if struck with a hammer. This also means that nonmetals are not malleable and ductile. The solid nonmetals are also dull, meaning to say they are not shiny like metals. Nonmetals are also poor conductor of heat and electricity. They do not allow the easy passage of electric current and heat. Nonmetals also tend to have lower melting point compared to metals. Metalloids, on the other hand, have some of the properties of metals and some non-metallic characteristics. They are sort of hybrid between metals and nonmetals. Metalloids are also known as semiconductors. Examples of metalloids include boron, silicon, and arsenic. Most metalloids are solid that can be shiny or dull. They conduct electricity and heat better than nonmetals, but not as well as metals. Metalloids are also malleable and ductile. Some example of this is silicon. It is a typical metalloid that has luster like a metal, but is brittle like nonmetal. Silicon is commonly used in computer chips and other electronics because of its electrical conductivity. It can be used as the processor of any device.